LeBron versus Jordan. Not LeBron's greatness. No one's bringing into question his greatness. I think that LeBron James, it's not his fault, but NBA rule changes had changed drastically from the bad boy Pistons to the New York Knicks with Anthony Mason and Charles Lee and all of these guys and what have you. And so I just look at it from that perspective, and I think about what Michael Jordan had to endure because of the physicality of the game.
When it comes to basketball royalty, the conversation has been polluted by names that do not belong. Too many have tried to insert other legends into a debate that never had room for more than two. The only true battle is LeBron James versus Michael Jordan, period. That is what Stephen A. Smith declared. And today, we are going to break down his words, line by line, quote by quote, as he firmly sets the record straight. There is no disrespect in calling LeBron second, because when the throne belongs to a man like Michael Jordan, it is not about hating greatness. It is about recognizing the bar that greatness can never reach again. This script will dive deep into 12 fierce takes from Stephen A. Smith, all of which will remind us why this debate has only two sides and only one winner. If you're ready to hear the real truth, to embrace the fire that comes with stating the facts boldly and unapologetically, then buckle up. And before we dive in, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to NBA Showdown, and hit that notification bell, because we are not afraid to tell it like it is. Let's begin. Stephen A. Smith opens this discussion by painting a vivid picture of what Michael Jordan had to survive just to reach the top. This is not about the rings. It is not even about the numbers. It is about the trials Jordan had to face in the 1980s. Back then, the NBA was a war zone of dynasties. The Philadelphia 76ers were no joke, led by the ferocity of Julius Erving and Moses Malone. Boston was a fortress with Larry Bird orchestrating a symphony of destruction. And then there were the Lakers, Showtime at its finest, where Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar turned dominance into art. To climb past all that, Jordan had to sharpen every edge of his game, mentally and physically. This was not the soft league many play in today. This was a battlefield of legends, of Hall of Famers stacking banners and daring anyone to challenge them. For Jordan to eventually rise above that era and redefine what winning meant is not just impressive, it is otherworldly. Stephen A. is not just reminiscing about history. He is pointing to an uphill war that Jordan climbed without shortcuts, without help from rule changes, without jumping teams to form super squads. The mountain Jordan scaled was full of fire, and the fact he emerged from it crowned as the greatest speaks volumes. That is why the road to prosperity matters, because not all greatness is built equally. Some fight through fire, others walk red carpets. Jordan bled through an era that would have eaten most alive. That cannot be ignored.
I think about the road to prosperity that Michael Jordan had to travel. I think about what the 76ers were in the 80s, what Boston was in the 80s, what the Lakers were in the 80s.
In the next breath, Stephen A. goes deeper into Jordan's journey before he ever tasted glory. It is one thing to dominate when the path is clear. It is another thing to claw your way up when the giants have already claimed the summit. Before the 90s began, Michael Jordan had already been tormented by the Pistons, hunted by the Celtics, and boxed in by a league where physicality reigned supreme. But what did he do? He evolved. He didn't just bulk up, he toughened his mentality. He learned how to break systems, how to dissect defenses, and how to lead not just with stats, but with an iron will. Stephen A. reminds us that Jordan's failures were not signs of weakness. They were the sharpening stones that forged a dynasty. When the 90s finally arrived, Jordan didn't just win. He annihilated everyone in his past. 6 titles, 6 finals MVPs, 2 three-peats. But none of that is as powerful as the climb itself. That climb through broken bones, bruised pride, and unrelenting opponents is why his ascension means more than just jewelry. Jordan didn't get handed anything. He didn't benefit from an era softening around him. He took hits that would sideline stars today and kept coming. That kind of greatness, that kind of perseverance, it is what separates immortals from mortals. Stephen A. is telling us, pay attention to the road, because who you beat to get there matters. And Jordan's path was straight through hell.
I mean, the list just goes on and on. No matter who you put up there, I got LeBron ahead of all of them.
Stephen A. puts a giant spotlight on something too many fans ignore: the environment. The NBA that Michael Jordan dominated was a gladiator pit compared to what LeBron has experienced. The rules were different. The pain was real. Back then, the league allowed brutal physicality. You could get bodied in the paint, clotheslined midair, and pushed to the brink just trying to make a play. The bad boy Pistons were not an exception. They were a symbol of an era. The Knicks under Pat Riley had enforcers like Anthony Mason and Charles Oakley. These were not just physical players, they were punishers. And Jordan still averaged over 30 points per game, still led his team to glory, and did it all without flopping or begging the refs for help. Stephen A. is not dismissing LeBron's greatness, but he is forcing us to understand that the path to dominance has changed. The league today is finesse, less contact, more spacing. Jordan was forged in chaos. He had to survive ambushes in the lane every night, and not only did he survive, he thrived. This is what makes Stephen A. so adamant. If you drop today's stars into that world, how many walk out the same? Jordan did it night after night, and it only made him stronger. That is why the road matters, because it tells us what greatness really had to endure. And Jordan endured more than any superstar has since.
And although Michael Jordan didn't win a title, the road that he had to travel to ultimately ascend to the point that he got to once the 90s rolled around, says a lot to me.
Stephen A. Smith draws a critical distinction here. Yes, LeBron James is a physical specimen. When he entered the NBA, he was a freight train wrapped in muscle and grace, bigger, stronger, and faster than almost everyone else on the floor. But here's the question that Stephen A. throws in your face. So what? When the game tilts in your favor the moment you arrive, how much of your greatness was tested by adversity? LeBron walked into a league where defenses were no longer allowed to beat you up, where the three-point line stretched the floor, and where zone defenses created soft gaps. Meanwhile, Michael Jordan walked into the fire. He had to develop his body. He had to face literal beatdowns from teams like the Pistons, who saw him as a threat and punished him for daring to rise. LeBron had the gift of nature and the benefit of timing. Jordan had to build everything from the ground up. Stephen A. is not diminishing LeBron's gifts, but he is asking, what did LeBron have to overcome physically when he already had every physical advantage from the beginning? Jordan didn't have that. He became the strongest mentally, not just physically. He had to adapt. He had to change. He had to fight battles where the odds were not in his favor. LeBron was born with the tools. Jordan forged them in fire. That difference matters, because being born with greatness is not the same as becoming it.
JJ Redick's point. I got a 19-time All-Star, 6-time League MVP, a 6-time champion in Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I got LeBron ahead of him.
Stephen A. Smith is hammering this point again and again because people refuse to listen. The NBA that Michael Jordan dominated was a completely different league. The hand-checking, the bruising defense, the lack of protective rules, it all meant you had to earn every inch of space. Jordan had to endure years where defenders could literally guide you with their hands, hip-check you without consequence, and slam you to the floor without fear of ejection. Today's league is built on protecting the star. Back then, it was built on survival of the fittest. Stephen A. makes this crystal clear. Jordan didn't play in an age where you could flail your arms and expect free throws. He didn't have illegal defense rules opening up the court for him. He operated in chaos, in a jungle, and in that jungle, he became king. LeBron, by comparison, came up in a sanitized, media-friendly, offense-driven era. The path was simply smoother. That's not hate, that's truth. Stephen A. is saying stop pretending that all eras are created equal. They're not. And the fact that Jordan excelled in the toughest one makes him incomparable. The road LeBron traveled was lit with endorsements and fanfare from the beginning. Jordan had to drag his reputation out of the mud, step by painful step. That is why the difficulty of the path is not just a footnote, it is the defining factor. The rules favored Jordan's pain. The league now favors LeBron's shine, and that tells the whole story.
What the NBA was allowing, the kind of things that were going on, and I view it from that perspective, and that's why I come to the conclusion that the road was tougher for Michael Jordan.
This is where Stephen A. drops the hammer. He acknowledges everything Jordan went through, the beatings, the losses, the heartbreak, and still points to the fact that Jordan rose above it all. That is what makes a legend. It's not just about winning, it's about how you win. Jordan didn't cry about the rules. He didn't beg for trades. He didn't switch teams in search of easier rings. He stood his ground. He got stronger. He turned every defeat into a lesson and every lesson into a weapon. When he finally conquered the league, he didn't just win once, he dominated it 6 times over. No game 7s. No need for help from outside forces. Just pure, unrelenting greatness. Stephen A. wants fans to understand that Jordan's rise is not some fairy tale. It was a blood and sweat story of someone who had every reason to fold but never did. And that is why comparisons fall flat. LeBron has had an amazing career, but his journey has detours. It has footnotes. It has caveats. Jordan's rise? It is a straight line of destruction, rising above every obstacle with no excuses. That is what greatness truly looks like. That is why Stephen A. keeps bringing it up, because you cannot rewrite history to make the paths seem equal when they never were. Jordan endured everything and still rose. And in that rise, he built a legacy that even the most gifted athlete could never duplicate.
Thousands of players in the NBA throughout history. I have one man above LeBron James, and that's Michael Jordan.
Stephen A. Smith is drawing a hard line in the sand with this one. There's no tiptoeing, no sugarcoating, no PR-safe language. He's saying flat out that Michael Jordan wasn't just better, he was different. He was in a class all his own. When Stephen A. says Jordan was on another level, he's not talking about stats or box scores. He's talking about presence. He's talking about that cold-blooded, unrelenting killer instinct that made opponents crumble before the game even tipped off. LeBron James may have the resume, he may have the numbers, but what he lacks is that aura, that mythical edge that Michael Jordan had, the psychological chokehold he placed on the entire league. Stephen A. is saying that greatness is more than just performance, it's dominance. And Jordan didn't just compete, he owned the moment. He left no room for error, no space for excuses, no path for debate. LeBron has had moments of greatness, yes, but he's also had moments of doubt, failure, and passiveness. That's not hate, that's fact. You cannot call yourself the greatest when your legacy is filled with what-ifs. What if he didn't leave Cleveland the first time? What if he didn't lose to Dallas in 2011? What if he didn't form super teams? Jordan didn't need any of that. He had himself, his fire, and a refusal to be anything less than perfect when it mattered most. That's why why Stephen A keeps repeating it, because Jordan separated himself. He didn't just win, he ruled, and that level is something LeBron, for all his greatness, has never reached.
Basketball, that's just ignorant to not have LeBron James as the top 10 player of all time. I got him number 2 all time, okay?
Stephen A doesn't deny LeBron's greatness. No one with sense does. He's a generational athlete, a 4-time champion, and a once-in-a-lifetime talent. But as Stephen A puts it, there's a reason people still speak Michael Jordan's name with reverence. It's not nostalgia, it's not blind loyalty, it's because Jordan's legacy was built without asterisks. He never had a finals series where he underperformed. He never lost when it mattered most. He never had a teammate carry him over the finish line. When you watched Jordan, you weren't just watching basketball. You were watching perfection, a man possessed, a force of nature, the standard by which everything is still measured. LeBron, for all his incredible accomplishments, has had too many stumbles, too many moments where he played it safe, passed the ball in crunch time, or disappeared entirely. Stephen A is not taking anything away from LeBron's place in history. He's just making it clear. There's a difference between greatness and immortality, and Jordan's name has become sacred in this sport for a reason. He never asked for validation. He demanded it. He didn't build his legacy on Twitter narratives or highlight reels. He built it through pain, perseverance, and an obsession with dominance. That is why people still whisper his name like he's a ghost haunting the league, because his legend is untouchable. Stephen A is telling the world, appreciate LeBron, respect him, honor him, but don't ever confuse admiration with reverence. That level, that belongs to Michael Jordan and Michael Jordan alone.
I've got an 11-time champion in 13 years in Bill Russell. I have LeBron ahead of him.
Here, Stephen A. Smith drops one of the most powerful facts in the entire GOAT debate. Michael Jordan never needed a Game 7 in the NBA Finals. 6 championships, 6 finals, 6 closeouts. Every time he stepped onto the biggest stage, he made sure the conversation ended on his terms. That is not a coincidence. That is not luck. That is greatness in its purest form. When Stephen A. highlights this, he's doing more than praising Jordan's record. He's emphasizing his mindset. Jordan never let a series get out of his control. He never gave an opponent a second chance. LeBron, on the other hand, has been to 10 finals and lost 6 of them. And many of those series included Game 7s, Game 6s, blown leads, and missed opportunities. That's not a knock on his ability. That's a reflection of the difference in mentality. Jordan finished the job every single time. Stephen A. wants fans to understand that championships are not just about numbers, they're about how you win them. And Jordan's finals were statements, final chapters with no cliffhangers. Meanwhile, LeBron's finals career is a roller coaster of highs and lows, triumphs and failures. When you talk GOAT, you cannot ignore this. You cannot pretend the pressure never got to LeBron. You cannot pretend Jordan's unblemished dominance doesn't mean something, because it does. It means everything. That's why Stephen A keeps circling back to this. Jordan didn't just win, he closed. And the ability to close, to shut the door with no questions asked, is the mark of the real greatest of all time.
Who once averaged 50 points in a season, once scored 100 points in a game, and a career 22 rebound per game center, who they had to change the rules for. I got LeBron James against him.
This is the line where Stephen A. Smith draws a line in the sand. He's not here to throw shade at LeBron James for the sake of headlines. He's not here to diminish what the man has done for basketball, for the culture, or even for his communities. But when the conversation shifts into the territory of comparing him to Michael Jordan, that's where Stephen A. shuts the door. That's where he checks out. Because in his eyes, and in the eyes of many who watched both men play, it's not even close. It's not the same aura. It's not the same dominance. It's not the same game. LeBron has always been about efficiency, about longevity, about adaptability. But Jordan was about excellence at its absolute peak. He didn't wait to see how the league evolved. He bent it to his will. He didn't go searching for help. He made the help better. He didn't lose finals and ask us to contextualize them. He won and made you feel like anything less than a title was a crime. Stephen A. isn't here to disrespect LeBron's journey. He's here to protect the truth. And the truth is that Michael Jordan set a standard that should never be watered down. You don't get to put LeBron in that conversation just because of stats and years. Jordan's greatness wasn't a numbers game. It was a cultural event. It was global. It was surgical. And Stephen A. refuses to pretend otherwise. LeBron is an all-time legend, but the moment you say he's Jordan's equal, you've already lost Stephen A. and anyone who understands the weight of that name.
I have a 5-time champion in Magic Johnson, the greatest point guard in history. I got LeBron ahead of him. I got a 5-time champion in Kobe. I got LeBron ahead of him.
This is where Stephen A. takes off the gloves. He's tired of the noise, tired of the labels, tired of being called a hater simply because he refuses to hand the GOAT crown to LeBron James. And he says it best right here. It's not hate, it's perspective. That perspective comes from watching Jordan destroy every competitor in his path. That perspective comes from seeing the Bulls go 6 for 6 in the finals, never needing a Game 7, never letting the moment become too big. That perspective comes from witnessing a man who never let legacy be dictated by anything other than winning. LeBron has done extraordinary things, but he's also lost when he shouldn't have. He's crumbled under pressure. He's deferred in the biggest moments, and that matters. You cannot have a real GOAT debate without facing those truths. Stephen A. is saying loud and clear that we need to stop confusing participation trophies with dominance. Greatness comes in levels, and while LeBron is undoubtedly on Mount Rushmore, there's a peak, a pinnacle, that only Jordan ever reached. That Stephen A. talks about is the realm of flawless greatness, the kind that defies analysis, the kind that doesn't need to be explained, only remembered. Jordan lives in that space, LeBron does not, and Stephen A. isn't afraid to say it because he's seen the difference with his own eyes. If you call that hate, you're missing the point. It's not hate, it's history.
I think that LeBron James, it's not his fault, but NBA rule changes had changed drastically from the bad boy Pistons to the New York Knicks with Anthony Mason and Charles Lee and all of these guys and what have you. And so I just look at it from that perspective, and I think about what Michael Jordan had to endure because of the physicality of the game.
This is the knockout punch. This is where Stephen A. Smith delivers the fatal blow to the GOAT debate. With one line, he captures everything that separates Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Jordan's legacy is a fortress, impenetrable, untouchable, built brick by brick with dominance, fire, and perfection. You can't chip away at it. You can't poke holes in it. You can't rewrite it. It stands on its own, unmoved by time or opinion. But LeBron, his legacy is a conversation, a never-ending back and forth filled with qualifiers, hypotheticals, and endless debates. Stephen A. is telling us that if you're really the greatest, there should be no discussion. There should be nothing left to prove. That's what Jordan did. He shut it down. He closed the book. And he didn't need 22 seasons, 10 finals appearances, or social media to do it. He needed 6 chances, and he turned every single one into gold. No finals losses, no clunkers, no super team narratives, just victory over and over again. Meanwhile, LeBron's story is still being written, and not in ink, in pencil. Fans are still trying to edit out the mistakes, the losses, the blemishes. That's the difference. That's why Jordan's legacy is a fortress, because there's no debate left, just admiration. And Stephen A. makes it clear, if your greatness still needs to be explained, then you've already lost the comparison. Stephen A. Smith didn't just enter the LeBron versus Jordan debate, he ended it. Not with malice, not with disrespect, but with unwavering truth and sharp clarity. Over 12 brutal, unfiltered declarations, he laid out the facts that many try to avoid. He acknowledged LeBron James for the all-time great that he is, but made one thing absolutely clear. He is not Michael Jordan. He does not have the perfect finals record. He does not have the unshakable killer instinct. He does not have the same impact when the lights burn hottest. Jordan set the bar. Jordan is the bar. Every other name is measured against him, not the other way around. And no amount of highlight reels, longevity records, or fan campaigns will ever change that. Stephen A. isn't living in the past. He's protecting the truth, a truth built on blood, sweat, sacrifice, and 6 flawless championships. So the next time someone tries to force LeBron into the GOAT throne, remember this: the debate might be loud, but the answer is silent and solid. Michael Jordan's greatness doesn't need to be argued. It just is.